Well, goodness me, what a beginning to the week we are having here on Level Up. Welcome, everybody, to episode 176 of the show. 60 minutes, of course, of live Q&A, where your questions really do drive everything that we do. Now then, I think Ella is over today in the chat, just checking. She's there already waiting for you. So do please introduce yourself to her. Let her know your name and, of course, the city from where you are joining. She's going to post some links in for you so that you can vote up the questions that you would like the panel to answer. And, of course, for you to be able to add your own. If your question is selected, then your name is going to appear in the credits at the end of the show. So do get your questions in early and stay with us to see all of that happening. Now, the American author, John C. Maxwell, wrote that a leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. In digital transformation, this, I think, presents a particular challenge to leaders as they need to demonstrate both personal adoption of technology in parallel with balancing their risk posture for their organization. So to help us figure out how we too can become digital leaders and adopt the right balance of traits, we have an amazing panel joining us today from all over the world. So let's jump in and meet them. Agnes joins, Agnieszka Bochacka from Poland. She guides global organizations through their transformation journeys over at PwC. Collaboration is very much at the heart of how she works and her colleagues do. With a clear vision and a pioneering spirit, I would say, Agnes established the first digital transformation manager program in Poland and regularly mentors at the MIT Enterprise Forum in Central and Eastern Europe. Welcome back to the panel, Agnes. Great to see you.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Jasbir Kooner is the Director of Cybersecurity over at Englobe, where she's leading their AI journey, having begun her career in the technology side of business. She's also transformed across into the working in the business side as well, suppliers and distributors in retail distribution in particular. Proud advocate for business relationship management. Jasbir invests in building meaningful relationships with her colleagues and her ecosystem. So welcome back to the panel, Jasbir. Lovely to see you.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Michał Brennek is an instructor over with OMEC. He describes himself as both a learner and an experimenter in equal measure, constantly striving to adapt the known and proven to the context of the organizations with whom he is working. Michał enjoys the challenge in delivering excellence to each and every one of his clients. Welcome back to Level Up, Michał.
Pleasure to be here.
Okay, okay, we're all very brief this morning, aren't we? We're very succinct. Thank you very much. Okay, all righty. Let's move on then from Michał to Ashish. You may remember Ashish, actually. He's a regular contributor to Level Up. He's also the general manager over at HCL Technologies, where his business leadership role really does build strong teams and help their clients around the world adopt leading edge technology. Conceptualizing and delivering and developing world-class solutions, Ashish enjoys the complexity and I think the pace, it's fair to say, of transformation projects as well. Welcome back, Ashish. Lovely to see you.
Thank you so much. And I'm excited on a Monday morning. Nothing better than starting the day or the week with such a lovely panel. So looking forward to a great discussion.
Thank you so much indeed. Always good value. Thank you so much, Ashish. Mart Rovers completes our panel on screen today. He, as you may remember, is an accomplished leadership coach and the president over at INTERPROM, which is a consultancy, education and training firm who build their business on long-term meaningful relationships with their clients. Mart does give very generously to professional communities, including the Level Up community, and has been a regular panelist since we began 2 years ago. Mart, welcome back to Level Up.
Thank you, Nick, for having me again. Thank you, APMG, and for this opportunity Also, everybody for joining, much appreciated, and to be among such esteemed panelists. I also have one from John Maxwell, Nick, as a quote that I thought would be appropriate for this to start off with. He once said, "Leaders must be close enough to relate to others, but far enough ahead to motivate them."
It's a good point, isn't it? I saw a graphic over the weekend, actually, of, how much do senior leaders, like the C-suite type folks, really understand of the day-to-day challenges of the business. And this graphic was arguing that, if you're an individual contributor, then you see all of the problems, and the further up the management chain you may be seeing a smaller subsection of the issues which are facing your organization. So that proximity is very important, as is also the distance to be able to say, this is the direction of travel that we're going in. So thank you, Mart, for that. Now, Level Up would not be complete without a question master, and I'm delighted to welcome back Suchitra Jacob, who joins us from Bangalore, the IT city in southern India. Welcome back, Suchitra. Lovely to see you.
Hello, Nick, and hello to the panelists and our viewers. And I agree with Ashish, it's a great topic to start the week with. I don't have a quote like Mart, but I do have a lot of questions to ask the panel, so can't get started.
So that's absolutely fine. Don't worry. I actually think that looking at some of the folks who are who've joined us already on LinkedIn and on YouTube, I think we're going to get some really good quotes actually from today's audience. So welcome everybody. We'll come to you online in a few moments. But in the meantime, Suchitra, why don't we start the process? Let's have our first question for the panel, please.
Yeah, sure. So our first question is from Rosie in New York. What are some character traits that digital leaders have in common?
Okay, all right. Ashish, why don't you start us off, and then we'll hear from Mart.
Sure. So I think one of the things that I've seen across, right, both at clients and even within organizations where, companies are moving into the consultancy space for transformation, really is that you have to be a good change agent, right? You need to be able to drive change, because digital transformation is all about changing the mindset and the attitude. And like Mark said, you have to be far enough, but you still need to be close. So any transformation leader needs to be close to the business and should not be, purely in the technology space. So it's very difficult to find the right mix where you are in technology, you understand, you are seeing ahead in terms of where technology is taking you, but at the same time you're so close to the business that you understand what they need and how technology can bring about that change for you. So I think it's a combination of the right mix of technology and business, and at the same time change management. So I would say those two, I think, would be the common traits that I see amongst most leaders.
That sense of working as an agent for change, rather than as somebody who is, kind of passive almost, or neutral, on the topic, is actually really, really important. So we may well come back to that. So thank you very much, Ashish. Mart, your thoughts, and then we'll hear from Mike.
You touched on it earlier, Nick, in the introduction, that digital leaders, I think, should not shy away from risks. They are risk takers to be out there with something that is groundbreaking, or it's far out. At the same time, they should be masters at networking, having a broad network of experts with them or around them in the industry. I think those are two very important character traits for digital leaders.
There's always risk, isn't there, in leadership? There's the risk of putting your head almost, above the parapet and kind of saying out loud, what it is that you're thinking. But I also think that with that risk comes the reward. It's fantastic when you see others listening and responding and, raising their game to kind of meet your aspirational vision, if you like, your aspirational goal, perhaps. Thank you, Mart. Really good start to the show. Mike, your thoughts, then we'll go to Agnes.
Well, I fully second what Mart just said. And if you are into digital transformation, the good chance is you will not get it right the first time. So if you want a solution that suits you, don't get it right out of the book. Just try and learn, and you will fail. So embrace this failure and embrace this risk, and try to learn as much about your organization and about the process itself. So enjoy the process also. And I think that what I've seen in many cases, that good digital transformation, digital leaders are also good communicators, both in terms of managing expectations of the stakeholders, because you will not get it right the first time, like right out of the box.
I think that's really important, that humility to kind of say, look, folks, this is our direction of travel. We might not get it right, but, creating that psychological safety for your colleagues in your organization to experiment, to try things out, to genuinely innovate, is going to be the way forward, and learn some lessons and move on to, version 1B, if that makes sense. Thank you very much indeed. Agnes, your thoughts, then we'll hear from Jasbir.
Okay, so I totally agree. From my side, I think that digital leader needs to develop, always find new opportunities, always find for something to grow, to looking for new ideas, to new education. So it's this kind of part that it's not like you learn something and it's for all life. You need to find every day something new, because the technology grow and grow and grow. So it's the part like every day learning something new, every day looking for something new.
It's certainly true, isn't it? I collide, or new ideas collide with me every week without fail in the technology space about, you should look at this. Here's an amazing app that can help with this. Here's a case study of somebody adopting technology from one industry vertical and applying it successfully to an entirely different one, and transforming the way in which they work through that process. So I absolutely agree with you. It's such a random collision of ideas with learning that leaders are going to be challenged increasingly to be able to have some sort of sense, of what is new and what might be the opportunities that they could embrace and adopt. So completely agree with you there. Thank you very much indeed. Jasbir, your thoughts, please.
I was pretty much going to piggyback off of that, which was curiosity. It is so important as a digital leader to stay curious, and tech's always changing. So we have to evolve with it. If we don't disrupt our own business and our own industry, somebody else is going to come and do it for us. So for that, you always have to keep on thinking ahead, not just one step, but 10 steps ahead. And continuing to kind of, as humans, we don't like change. We have to live in that fear aspect, right? Where it's, if I don't do it myself, somebody else is going to do it. Might as well I take these chances. And then I also think as leaders, it's so important to be a leader by example. So show those around you that you believe in what you're doing, and it's okay to make mistakes, learn from your failures, and adopt different technologies and solutions. So for myself, I would say those are the two traits that I believe are very important.
I completely agree with you there. This sense of being the chess player. I'm not sure how this board game is called in Canada, but in the UK, there's the drafts game, which is pretty straightforward in the way in which you play it, and then there's the game of chess. And the game of chess requires that more consideration about the next 5, 6, 7, the great players make it look easy, of course, but however many steps there are ahead that you can look, if the further ahead that you can look, the more possibilities you can compute, the more opportunities you can derive from that competitive landscape, which is represented by the pieces on the board. So be a chess player, I would say. Absolutely right, rather than the drafts player. Really good. Thank you so much indeed, Jasbir. Michał, final thoughts on this, and then we'll go over to social.
Yeah, I would add that not only a digital leader has to be a great learner, but also has to be able to attract talent and support them, because in the changing world, you cannot know everything. So you have to rely on your team. That's why it is so important to acknowledge your talent and support people who work with you.
That's very true indeed. We only have a certain capacity, don't we, to be able to, find things out and discover new things. And, by definition, we're working with colleagues in an organization. They can really multiply our window on the world to discover new technologies and new ideas. So let's jump over to our social feed and see who our producers are online today. First of all, Gwen, welcome. Gwen Benson. She's joining us from Surrey here in the UK. So really great to have you online with us today. And Charles, representing the entire nation of Wales, if I may say that, my friend, joining us from Cardiff, of course, really lovely city in South Wales. And Ludmilla joins also from Vienna over in Austria. So welcome, Ludmilla. Great to have you as part of our producers today. Now, folks, if you're online, then, and I can see many of you are, it would be really great for you to submit some questions to the panel. So please do jump in and do that next. I can see some regular viewers, all right, who are already there. So you can type your question into the chat, or you can use the QR code on screen and jump straight over into Slido and enter your question there. We don't mind wherever you do that, but please do. Okay, very good. Suchitra, let's move on. We'll take our next question, please.
Sure. Our next question is from Justin. What strategies can digital leaders use to drive innovation and stay ahead of the competition?
Okay, so some strategies. We were talking about being the chess player rather than the draft player a little earlier, panel. What strategies do you think would be good to encourage our digital leaders to drive innovation and really stay one step ahead of the competition? Mart, why don't you start us off on this one?
One strategy would be to look further than the boundaries of your current industry. Digital leaders have that in common. Actually, they don't bother about they don't feel limited by the industry that they're in, and come up with solutions or thingies, so to speak, that are going across industry boundaries. So I think that would be something to include in a strategy, and good to have that broad mindset in essence.
Yeah, I think that curiosity was a great word that was mentioned a little earlier, wasn't it? Right. It's kind of looking beyond, your current environment to be able to pull in those innovative ideas. And cross-sector fertilization is so important and has worked many, many times for people. So it's a really great idea. So thank you very much indeed. Ashish, your thoughts, and then we'll hear from Agnes.
Sure. So I think as a leader, if you're trying to drive digitization across your organization or for your client, you have to think holistic, right? You cannot have a myopic view to a problem. So while, yes, the problems that come to you for which you're trying to find a solution will be very point to point, and they may not be strategic. But the vision that you bring in as a digital leader is that you convert those point-to-point problems and make them strategic, and you kind of try and find a solution which encompasses not just one business unit or just one business function, but it looks holistically at the landscape of the organization, right? So while Mart said that you have to think outside your industry, yeah, that's definitely there. But at the same time, if you're looking for an organization and you're trying to find a problem, an answer to a problem, think for the larger organization. Think how you can encompass all the functions and different aspects, and then kind of find a holistic approach. Because most often than not, I've seen that while you're trying to fix one problem with a smaller solution, you actually miss the bigger picture. And I think that's where some of these projects fail, because you're not really having a macro view, but you have a very myopic view to the problem.
Yeah, I can see that. I've witnessed that happening. You have a great point solution, what I would call a point solution. It deals with a particular scope. It's meaningful. It has real purpose and pace, and you can implement it reasonably, affordably and quickly, and so on and so on.
Okay.
But the risk is if the latency in the rest of the organization is such that it fails to adopt that new benefit that might derive from that point solution, then it will never be strategic, and it will simply sit there at the edges, at the periphery of the way in which people do business. So it's a tricky balance to get right there. We might come back to that in a moment, my friend. Okay. Agnes, let's hear from you next, and then Jasbir.
Yes, I like very much approach to engage the younger generations to use their power, to use their energy, their motivations, and also looking for the innovations. They have a lot of ideas, so building some kind of change agent community to engage them in the projects, in the transformations is very good for the digital leader to drive innovations naturally using normal power in the organization.
Yeah, that's such an important thing, isn't it? Last year, I think it was, or the year before, somebody introduced me to an app that you could use just on a phone, and it reduced the amount of time taken to do something that traditionally I'd been using quite a powerful computer to do, and took lots of training to be able to figure out how you did it. And this app had been so well put together that you could produce the output in a fraction of the time. I would never have come across that app, because the way in which I learned how to do things was generally through a computer first. That's my kind of, default platform, if you like to use, rather than somebody who was learning from a mobile perspective and using apps as their first choice. So completely agree with that. Really good point. Thank you so much. Jasbir, your thoughts on this?
So in this day and age, we're generating so much data, and there's so much analytics that is available to us. Anytime you ask a company and you say, hey, are your decisions data-driven? Are you really looking at your data, analyzing the market, analyzing your customer? Every company will always say, yes, for sure, we're data-driven. And when you actually sit at the table and attend some of the meetings, it's not data-driven. Usually it's one person that's deciding, maybe they've been at the company for a long time, or it's the head of a department, and you don't really understand where they're coming from all the time. So when you start to create a strategy around something that's not tangible at that point, it becomes harder to get other people on board. So in order to have more of an informed and innovative strategy at the beginning, especially when you're looking for easy wins, if you do go down the path of a data where there's analytics and you can show exactly why you're choosing one over the other, I think it really helps to break down the silos, get more individuals involved, and create that passion that everyone's like, all right, we're going in this reason and this is our why.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That sea of data that we produce is not equivalent to the insight that we can draw from it. And the challenge, I think, for people is to understand truth. Just because it's on a slide, or just because you can find it on the internet, doesn't necessarily make it true, if that makes sense. And I think that people generally find it very difficult to visualize data. Particularly the amounts of data that we're producing, it is meaningless to people, and trying to get some way in and some sense of scale and why you need machine learning, artificial intelligence, or great software to be able to help you derive the value, mine the value from your data, is super important. So thank you very much indeed. What a great question, Justin. Thank you very much indeed. Some strategies there to help all of us kind of stay one step ahead of our competition and to genuinely innovate. Let's move on, Suchitra, if we can, please, and take our next question.
Our next question is from Sabina. Should all managers or leaders nowadays consider becoming more educated or an expert in digital leadership. Is there even a chance of escaping this?
It's a really good point. Is there a chance of escaping it? I would say no. No, there's no chance of escaping it. So the imperative is upon all of us to become better educated. Let's mix this up a little. Michał, why don't you start us off on this one?
I would say that it is right now a part of our culture to be knowledgeable in all those fantastic digital digital revolutions we are seeing these days. So definitely there is no chance of escaping this. And if you are to be a leader, and if you are to be a good leader in this digital world, you have to listen to your experts. So you at least should try to be knowledgeable in some of the topics they tackle in their everyday work. And also if you will not embrace this change we are seeing these days, you will be basically left behind. As simple as that.
It's a real problem, isn't it? Because, the pace at which the organization is moving and developing and growing is that you can end up moving from the kind of stage of being, or at least understanding your own ignorance, to being genuinely just out of the frame because you've not kept up with the basics, if that makes sense. So thank you very much indeed. Agnes, your thoughts, please, and then we'll hear from Mart.
Yes, I totally agree that nowadays it's very hard to not be a digital leader, only the leader, because the technology revolution is now, and we have a lot of exponential technologies which are now in our business and in our environment. So I think it's some kind of naturally choices when you want to be updated and really good on the market. You need to think about the technology. You not need to know every technology, how it works, but for me it's very important to know how the technology could help my business, my department, how I could use it, and knowing how the technology could help my part of the organizations, because it's not like the normal department. The HR department now use technology. Also the sales, the marketing, every part of the business change a lot. So if you want to be a good leader, good manager for the team, you need to know how the technology could help to build the better place for the workers.
Yeah, I completely agree. And the commitment there is one that's needed both in work hours and also out of hours, to be able to manage that education. And I would agree much more with focusing in terms of leadership on education rather than necessarily learning a proprietary technology, if that makes sense. So being able to understand principles and being able to apply those principles and evaluate emerging technologies against those principles may well be the direction of travel if you're looking for leadership education, at least. So thank you, Agnes. Mart, your thoughts on this, and then we'll go to Ashish.
Well, any leader indeed should be tech savvy. I mean, there's no escaping. I totally agree. And I want to emphasize on what you just said, Nick, as far as keeping up with what goes on in the industry, as far as all the digital transformations and the opportunities out there. When do you take the time to do this? Is leadership motivating and inspiring the rest of the organization to say it's okay to do this during business hours? Or are we supposed to do this during evening and weekend hours when there's maybe other priorities? So it's a very interesting question. I come across many students in my classes that, are you on LinkedIn? Are you following industry groups? Are you following leaders? Anything digital transformation? And then it says, no, kinda. And when do you do this? When I think about it. I think that's the wrong approach. I think as a leader, you should stimulate this and not when somebody is on LinkedIn getting suspicious as, oh, this person is looking for another job. So, no, this person might be educating him or herself with the next blog or post or article or white paper that was just released. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I agree with you. Building your professional network should deliver exceptional value to you and your colleagues and your organization. So many times in my consulting career, clients spoke about wanting greater innovation in their organizations, wanting people to step forward with good ideas. You know, the C-suite really looks to team leaders, mid-career managers, individual contributors to come up with new ideas. And yet, you know, if we overload people with day-to-day work, then we push that naturally out of the working day. It becomes a hobby instead of an integral part of our professional lives. So we must make time for that. So that's a really good call to action for everybody. And Sabina, it's a great question. How do we manage to do that and make sure that we give our colleagues, you know, sufficient time to be able to do that during the working day itself? Ashish, your thoughts, please, and then we'll hear from Jasbir.
Right. So, you can't escape it for sure, right? And like some of the other panelists said, you get left behind, you get lost. One of the things that I feel is that you can do is challenge status quo. I think that's the guiding principle. Don't get complacent in the place that you are in. And, look at design thinking as your fundamental framework or as a principle, right? Because design thinking really challenges you to see what's not working in your space. What can you do better? So probably look that as a guiding principle. Keep challenging your status quo. You cannot know all the technologies. Technology will change. What you see today will not be there tomorrow. So don't get worried on the technology aspect of it. I think try and find the problems. If you're able to find the problems and you try and find better ways, there will always be somebody in the organization who will help you with the technology piece of it and would guide you in terms of what technology can help solve the problem. So you don't need to be an expert in everything, but yes, don't get complacent. Challenge yourself. Challenge your teams to think and innovate. I think that's the fundamental principle which will continuously help you to be in the transformation pace, so to say.
Yeah, I agree with that. I can't remember who it was actually, but somebody once said that one of the traits of managers versus leaders, and he was talking, I think, about those people who are aspiring to be leaders of the future, is that managers will generally accept the status quo more, whereas people who are thinking in leadership mode will generally challenge the status quo more. Now, it's not an absolute, it's not a all or nothing type thing, but I'm just being told actually it was Warren Bennis who came up with that. Quote. So thank you, Suchitra. Suchitra's just let me know kind of in the chat. Thank you, Suchitra. It was Warren Bennis, but I think that there is something in that. If you're going to lead, then by definition, you have to do so from the front. You have to express your thought, and that is going to be, to challenge however we do things today a little. So thank you very much indeed. Jasbir, your thoughts, and then we'll go back to Michael.
I just wanted to take a moment here just to, when I read that question, it goes, should all managers, leaders, right, consider becoming more educated experts in digital leadership? The one thing we need to be mindful of is that we right now are in the most diverse workforce that we've ever had. With boomers, Gen X, we have millennials and Gen Z. So when we're looking at managers and leaders, let's not look at it as an individual, because every generation has their strength. There were certain individuals that were born when tech did not exist. Others lived half their life without tech, and others were born straight into tech. So this is where, when we're asking a question like that, we're looking to create business value. And business value can be created with an idea that from a person that doesn't have that much knowledge of tech, and making sure that that person is in a cross-functional team with somebody that does have a strength in tech, and aligning them together so that they could collaborate and work together. So this is where I would say just be mindful that it's not at an individual base. It could be at a team base, where you want to make sure everyone has their strengths and they're using it together to build on that digital aspect for the business.
And just to kind of stick with that for a moment, because I agree with you, by the way. I think there is significant difference in the way in which each generation, if you like, is contributing and is wanting to contribute. Do you think that is an imperative now for leaders in organizations, whether you're leading a small team or whether you're leading a large organization, to encourage that there's more than one way of achieving the same end, if that makes sense?
I actually read a business case. I can't specify. I don't remember right now which article. And they were saying there was a boomer working in a company, and the person knew the software inside out. They practically created it years ago. A Gen Z came in and they didn't know, right? And they wanted to be mentored. They wanted to learn, and they were able to add in certain parts to that software to make it better. Right? Where the person that created it couldn't see outside the box. But when you partnered those two generations together, all of a sudden you have this lethal combination, right? Where you have somebody that knows exactly the back end, and then somebody that's like, hey, let's think outside the box. Let's do this, right? So that's where I find just getting that good, synergy, energy, right? That vibe where it's, here's a great team. And maybe as a leader at a higher level, right? When you're looking and you're saying, how do I get everyone at this level to come on board? It could be more of a collaborative approach where you're creating these strategic teams.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Mike, final thoughts on this?
It's absolutely a great question. It struck me, that we actually, like 90% of managers these days were digital leaders of the pandemic, because we had to transform our teams for the digital environment mostly. So to what extent should you be an expert? I don't know. It depends on the situation. And I think that you should be mindful of what tools you actually need to implement. Because at the end, if those tools do not bring value to your team, I'm thinking about like a team, or, well, not like a huge organization, but let's say you manage the team, right? So it is not a strategic level. So what kind of tools do you really need? And then if you implement those tools successfully, and I'm sure that many of us did in pandemic, what is the reward for that? Is it only our the value we create, or is it also the way we work? And I think that the key that the manager is the ability, observation of processes, and being able to adapt the process to the circumstances. So in that context, if you know the tools, or if you can source tools or source it from your team, tools they need, then being mindful about the goal, about the team, and the work they usual to successfully transform your team. So yeah, it's a brilliant question. We could show this from some.
Yeah, I think so. Michael, I'm just going to interject a little bit, if I may, just because we're technically having a few little problems with your signal, so you broke up a little bit. But I think we got the gist of that. So what a great question to ask. Now, do consider also taking those certifications as part of your approach to your education. Certainly things like enterprise big data. If you're considering thinking about how do you make sense of that sea of data that we were talking about a little earlier, and bring it into your organization in a meaningful way, it's a really good grounding actually for digital leaders in the future, and talks about the principles rather than a particular technology application of those principles. So do give that some thought. Now then, over online, we've got a huge audience today. So I'm just going to jump across and give a few folks a little bit of a shout out. So Luciana, thank you so much for joining from the wonderful city of Cambridge here in the UK. Very beautiful city there. And Cello joined us from Klerksdorp in South Africa. I probably made a complete hash of the pronunciation of that name of your city, but never mind anyway. I gave it a go. Aruna joins us from Sri Lanka, so really great to have you online as well today, so thank you for joining, Aruna. And Mohammed rejoins from Pakistan. Mohammed is a regular viewer and really great to have you online again today, so thank you very much for joining in with us, and looking forward to hearing your comments in the chat. Producers, because you are the producers of the show, so put your questions into the panel and also join in the conversations online. See if you can answer the questions yourself kind of as you go along. Let's start that debate and discussion. Okay, very good. Let's move on if we can then, Suchitra, and we'll take our next question, please.
We have a live question from Melvio. Are organizations there yet with their digital adoption?
Is it a destination? Is it really a destination? Can you arrive saying, that you're 100% digital first, fully digital organization? Is that a nirvana state? Is it just a dream? Ashish, at HCL, you're steeped in technology. Is it just a dream, or is it an attainable reality?
I think it's a journey, right? It's a spectrum where as an organization, you or as a consultant, you are trying to get other organizations to be on, right? And you could be at any end of the spectrum. It really depends on what your visions are, what your resources are, and where you want to be. So there is absolutely no end to it. It's a journey. You keep evolving. Your business is evolving. Your competition is evolving. Your market is evolving, right? From pandemic to what we saw, there was a spurge all of a sudden in everything that was available, right? Everything went online. And there was a spurge of e-commerce websites. There was all of a sudden an increase in how you are doing your transactions, financial transactions. You were not visiting banks anymore. People switched to online banking. People switched to online transactions. So you're using less and less of paper currency. So everything around you is constantly changing, and you need to adapt to it. Similarly, in your business environments. So it's definitely a journey. Most organizations are getting there, right, in some shape and form. Some are early adopters who, those who have adopted early are further down the road, but it's no end for them, right? So if you were using, let's say, a call center with 5,000 people, yes, you have adopted technology and you are now doing better, right? With an IVR, with a chatbot, or several other things. But then you've got the next stage of maturity where you can introduce AI into your conversations, right? And your chatbot can do so much more and so much more meaningful conversations, even while you're just doing, a chatbot. So it's definitely a journey. It's a spectrum. You introduce one technology, the technology evolves, and you kind of adapt to it, and you kind of continuously see what value is it bringing to you. And you need to have a fine balance, right? Because at the end of the day, you have a responsibility to your board members, right? You have a responsibility to your shareholders. So you need to see where you want to be, in terms of technology versus your business operations, and where do you draw the fine line between, yes, I am there, and this is where I think is the minimum, versus this is where I can continue to evolve and progress myself. So fine balance between your financials and where you want to be.
Thank you so much indeed. Thank you. Mart, your thoughts?
It's certainly a cultural change one has to go through. If we have a digital focus in an organization, and one way you can easily measure that is the adoption rate, digital adoption rate. Is that a KPI in your organization? Is that even being measured? And if it's not, then that's your answer right there. Your organization might not be focusing on it, or try hard, and see if it sticks. But I would say answer it that way if you want to know if your organization makes it a focus.
Thank you very much. It is a good point. If you don't measure it, then, how do you know actually if you're making any progress? Jasbir, your thoughts on, organizations' journey towards digital adoption?
From my end, I was thinking at it more as if you're a small organization or a mid-sized organization where you have less legacy systems, the tech debt isn't there, and you're more flexible, you're going to be able to be more agile and go and adopt the digital aspect faster, I believe, than a big organization will, where there's more structure, there's more, organizational aspects that you have to get through. So when we're saying our organizations, that's very broad, and you really need to start to break it down. And then within the organizations, it's industries. So as someone that came from the taxi industry, running a taxi with a company that was a legacy company, and all of a sudden Uber took us out and we didn't even have a chance, right? So I always try to look at it from the new age, old age, where sometimes like being in the taxi industry, I couldn't see past what we were doing at that point. And once Uber came in, I couldn't not see that anymore, right? And then you're all of a sudden, as a human, you're transformed for life because you've seen firsthand that digital disruption just change a whole industry.
Absolutely, completely agree with that. Thank you very much indeed. And also, I would say on that one, Milvio, thank you for the question, by the way. Milvio is a regular contributor to Level Up, a regular producer in our audience all of the time, is that it's also important to find out what people are doing with the technology that they're using, because you'll find a lot of organizations don't use Microsoft Excel to add things up and do mathematics at all. They actually use it to type things into and to make their notes with. Why are they doing that? That's not, it might be digital, but it's hardly best practice. So do consider, what are people actually really using the software for? And do look for optimization opportunities as part of that. How well do people know how to leverage the AI, which is built into things like, even basic things like Microsoft Office and so on, to become more productive? How is that professional development going? Or do you just assume that everybody, is using the software as designed? They're probably not. Okay, very good. Thank you very much, panel. Question Master, I think we've got time for one last question, Suchitra. So let's put that forward to the panel.
Sure. So we have a question from Paula in Liverpool to the panel. Why did the panel become digital leaders?
Hey, this is a great question, isn't it? So for ourselves, why have we become digital leaders? Mart, you've spent your entire life surrounded by technology. In 2 sentences, why have you become a digital leader?
It always has piqued my interest. It was an actual choice, as I want to be in that field because there's always something new. And my second answer would be to remain relevant. You have to.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much indeed. Mike and then Ashish.
Well, I break things, so life made me become a digital leader to fix them quicker than I break them. So I was always curious, basically. So usually my organizations will push me, you do that. And I really like it.
Okay, I love that. I think I'm going to make a note of that one. Actually, I break things. I break a lot of things, so I really needed to, figure out how to fix them. It's certainly true. And in the analog era, of course, there would be a small box with 3 or 4 parts left in it that you kind of think on reassembly, well, they probably were unnecessary. Ashish, why did you become a digital leader?
I think one is to stay relevant, right? I think Mart said that very important, that you need to adopt and change with the times that you are in. So definitely yes, to continue to remain relevant. That was one primary reason, and second is I think I like driving change. It's I see that as a digital leader, change management is an integral part and is a key aspect of driving and being able to deliver any transformation. So change management and communication, I think, are a couple of things that I've enjoyed doing as a professional, and that kind of drove me into the space of being a digital leader.
Okay, excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much indeed. From the kind of curious, I think that was a strong theme through today's show, and also this thought of trying to keep pace, with the wider organisation and our communities and our industries. Very important. Digital leadership itself. So let's hear our closing remarks then from the panel, if we may. Mart, I'm going to come to you first, and then we'll hear from Mike.
Speaking of staying ahead, stay focused, stay consistent, stay positive, and keep moving forward. That would be my closing remark.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Michael, your final thoughts on today?
I think it is important to remember that the technology is here for us, and we are created to do great things. And if the technology can help us, especially with those boring ones, then we should transform those into the digital era as soon and as quickly as possible. Good luck, everybody, with the transformation.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much indeed. And if you do need help, by the way, anybody who's watching online, you're most welcome to connect with any of the panel, actually, on LinkedIn. We do have all of our LinkedIn profiles available to you via the APMG International events page. So do hop over there, and then you'll find all of the profiles, and you'll be able to click through and connect with people. Agnes, your thoughts on today, and then we'll hear from Jasbir.
Yeah, from my side is looking for something that inspires you and building some kind of passions close to the technology, but it not to be really deep in technology. It could be in between the technology and the business, but find something which is interesting for you and build this opportunity for the future.
Yeah, and that keeping that interest, really does show, doesn't it? If you're passionate about something as a leader, then other people will derive energy from that passion because they'll see, how committed you are actually to it. So it's very important to show that and share that enthusiasm, with colleagues. Jasbir, your thoughts, and then we'll hear from Ashish.
For myself, I would say keep learning. Always stay curious and lead with purpose. It's so important that you're just not doing something just for the sake of doing it because everybody else is doing it, or it's the new thing to do. So if it's the foundation is built on purpose, it's going to get adopted more within the organizational culture.
We're going to steal that, I think, and we'll attribute it to you. Lead with purpose. So, Ella, I think you should pop that into the social chat as well for people. What a great phrase. I'll certainly try and do more of that this week than I was thinking of doing. So thank you very much indeed, Jasbir. Great coaching point there. Ashish, your thoughts? Then we'll hear from Suchitra.
Change is not easy. Digital transformation is never easy. You may not get it right the first time. It's a journey. So there's no end state, right? So it's part of journey. Enjoy it. Be passionate about it, and I'm sure you'll find success. Yeah.
Absolutely. Be persistent, have that resilience and the fortitude, that inner strength, to be able to continue and see things through. Really, really important. Suchitra, your thoughts on today? It's been quite an interesting journey through digital transformation with a broad range of ideas and thoughts and so on. Your closing remarks, please. I think we've lost Suchitra for a moment. Hopefully she'll be back. Oh, here she comes. Very good.
All right. So it's been a great show. Thank you to our panelists for answering some fabulous questions put by our viewers. So I want to end with a quote this time. So it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It's the one that is the most adaptable to change, by Charles Darwin.
Okay, all right. So Charlie Boy, he is often quoted actually, and throughout the Level Up series, and I think with real meaning, because it is incumbent, I think, upon all of us to be able to sometimes play the leadership role, whether it's in a meeting where we volunteer some new information, or we make an offer to find something out and, do that research and bring that back into the team who are considering a challenge, or it's in our teams or in our organizations, or even outside of work, in our daily lives and our volunteering. So really important. Yes. So thank you very much, Suchitra. Now then, thank you on behalf of all of our online viewers. And there were a lot today, representing pretty much every continent around the world. Thank you very much, panel, for sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you particularly for those of you who stayed up very late at night, to Jasbir in particular. Awkward time of the day for you to join. So thank you very much indeed. And also to Mart as well. Thank you for doing so. Also, our producers, thank you for joining us and putting such great questions into the panel. Now, over on our website, you can, of course, search for and find all of the answers to the previously asked questions on Level Up. It's a fantastic resource, so do jump over there and have a look. There's around about 2,000, I think, now, questions and answers available to you. So do use that tool. And don't forget that you can listen to the audio versions of the shows on your preferred podcast platform as well. So just search for APMG International and Level Up Your Career to find that content. Coming up this Friday, let's look ahead a little. We're going to explore how to secure the coveted status of becoming a chartered project management professional. So that's Friday at 2 p.m. UK time. And then this time next week on Monday, we're going to look at a skill which is a fantastic accelerant, a catalyst to you building your career, how to become an amazing facilitator, how to facilitate like a pro is the topic that we'll be looking at this time next week. Friday the 18th, is our second anniversary of Level Up. So do join us for that episode. It's on at 2 p.m. UK time on the 18th. And the easiest way to do that, if we can ask you, please, is head over to our YouTube channel and hit that like and subscribe button. And of course, the little bell, which will give you some alerts, when we go live and some reminders and so on. Do ask us and we'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and level up your career with APMG. Thanks very much, everybody. We'll see you next time.